Thank you. And it's occurred to me that there's some openings in Halifax, by the way, in England and South Australia, and it's crossed my mind. Yeah, it is. When I thought about Zion these past 11 days, the 11 days since the election, the days after what for me and for many of us was a shocking, and Bill used the same word, shocking, and I would add dismaying, presidential election, Zion was and is our country. Zion is a word for my country to me. From its beginnings, an often deeply flawed country, to be sure, but a country that has had moments of living out its promise. Can we agree to that? Yeah. The Zion where the Saturday before voting day, my husband and I set out for a day of self-care. I really hate that word. A round of small adventures and pleasures that included a trip to our favorite farmer's market, where we often only come away with a single head of organic lettuce. That particular Saturday, we came away with nothing at all, but always enjoy the crowds of shoppers, many of them with arms full of brilliant orange and yellow seasonal flowers for fall, accompanied most of the time by their exuberant dogs. A stop for raspberry frosted donuts, surrounded by soccer kids and their parents. It looked to me about half of them had already played and some of them were on their way out. A visit to the High Museum in Atlanta for the long-anticipated traveling Georgia O'Keeffe exhibit. Gotta go. Her astonishing abstract landscapes and renditions of Manhattan skyscrapers, timelessly awe-inspiring. A surprise encounter with the Day of the Dead festival, complete with elaborate skull makeup and mariachi bands in this increasingly multicultural South. For God's sake, multicultural South. And for Richard, a Georgia football win. And since I'm not in Auburn today, I don't have to apologize for that. For both of us, the neighborhood street conversations with some hesitant talk about what we all thought might happen that Tuesday, but also stories about Halloween night the previous week with roving hordes, happy hordes of trick-or-treaters. Richard always counted, we had 110. The annoying middle school pranks, you know those, the smashed pumpkins, the candy wrappers littering the streets, but also the universal politeness and good cheer of the children and teenagers who knocked on our door in their amazing costumes, or not. Sometimes I want them just to put face paint on, but I still give them candy. What I have come to see had been a day-long meditation on the possibilities in the future for an ordinary, unpolitical life. You know what I'm saying? An ordinary, unpolitical life. If nothing else, to serve as a reminder of what happened before, might not happen again, and a memory. On Fridays, we walk our dog, which is our daily spiritual practice, past one of the town's faithful school crossing guards, who typically turns her attention from her cell phone to us, at least for a minute, to me, when she always asks how my words are coming for Sunday. Pastor, she calls me Pastor, I am sure they are in there if you just pray on it. Sometimes I say, I'm fine. I got the words, I got this one. Often I say, I'm glad that I actually have 2 more days to prepare for Sunday. That Friday, less than 2 weeks after this past Friday, less than 2 weeks after the election, I told her that I still had no words, or at least any words that might make this gathered, beloved community feel better. And I know somebody asked me that. Hard stop. The last time I felt this way, the last time I felt so wordless and so unable to offer immediate comfort, was the Sunday after 9/11. I had been invited to be in the pulpit during the sabbatical of a colleague. Go figure, that particular Sunday. So there I was, taking on what seemed like and was the enormous responsibility, an enormous challenge of being with them at this terrible moment in our history. I was thinking of other times. Pearl Harbor, for many of us, the JFK assassination, and then the Bobby Kennedy assassination, and the Malcolm X assassination, and the MLK assassination in 1968. One of the congregants who I'd worked with in the past even emailed me to tell me that she was looking forward to being reassured that all will be well. My response, I am sure, was not what was expected, and it may not be what is expected this morning. I stood before them, a guest minister, and said that for me, in any case, it was way too soon for too rapid a turn to peacemaking and universal forgiveness. Too soon. 6 days before, I had been in an inspiring, forward-looking conference on improving the lives of our children and their families. I went to hear Marian Wright Edelman from the Children Advocacy Movement. I came back to my car, I turned on the radio, and on public radio, that's when I found out. 6 days before, my husband was in California with seemingly no way to get home to me. I thought I might never see him again. 6 days ago, I told that congregation, 3,000 people had been killed. There was grieving and all of its stages to go through. I offered them the comfort of being on that hard journey together, which they had demonstrated already by choosing to be in that particular Unitarian Universalist fellowship that Sunday after a Tuesday of crashing planes and felled fires and human devastation that went on for years. For many, but I would be remiss in not saying not all of us, some of our loved ones and some of us and our neighbors, this was just a public presidential election whose consequences many of us fear and mourn. There is again grieving in all of its stages to go through, and there are broken hearts. How many of you are willing to say that you have a broken heart? A short time before November 5th, 2024, a book was published, a small volume, a very small volume, I think it has 218 pages, that at least one reviewer has predicted may well become a classic that will be passed from hand to hand, written by Rabbi Sharon Brous, much in the spirit of the late Rabbi Harold Kushner's best-selling 2004 book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. How many of you have read that? This, to me, is the book moving forward that has that much resonance and that much utility for all these years, titled The Amen Effect. And I didn't want to give Bill that title because I wasn't sure you would come in if we had the word amen in a service. And subtitled Ancient Wisdom to Mend Our Broken Hearts and Our World, based on the premise that no one alive escapes having a broken heart, but that showing up for each other in community, holding each other's hearts, coming alive to our shared generational mission, seeing no one as being a stranger, bearing witness, not witness, but witness, that the work is not to fix each other, but to love each other, can bring us hope and healing. So there you go, there's the word hope. The timing, as one writer describes it, was uncanny and much needed in the context of what seems to be an irresolvable war in Gaza, the not yet, in my opinion, processed years of pandemic shutdown and losses, the pandemic of loneliness that has remained with us, and what was then still the coming presidential election that might well determine the fate of our American democracy. So what is the amen effect? And I'm going to go back and forth. I don't know, who says amen? Who says amen? I'm just going to go back and forth because if you look it up, either one works. For some of us, the word amen is not in our non-theistic vocabulary. But as we are reminded by dictionary.com, while the origins of amen are in the endings of a prayer or creed or other formal statement spoken to express solemn ratification or agreement, used adverbially to mean 'tis so, it can also be used, we are told, outside of religious settings. If you call out, for example, we need access to quality education for our children, there are those who might respond, Amen. Do it again. Amen. So you know what I'm saying? You can do that. It's quite common for us to use amen to affirm what somebody has said, and it doesn't have to look like a formal or informal prayer. For Rabbi Sharon Brous, the single word amen conveys a world of meaning, she tells us. She tells us that it is powerful and ancient for thousands of years, echoing through Jewish and Christian and Muslim religious practices, and with the African Yoruba tradition of Ashe, or Aseh, it is indeed a verbal affirmation, in her words, a kind of sacred witness. Amen.